is starting to record.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we're going to speak a little bit about a subject that we've been, touching base about. Actually, we've been speaking lately about the relationship and how you could perfect your relationship based on what you could do as a human being, not more, not less. But there's the basics that you're supposed to take care about and not to neglect, not to ignore. The best way almost all the time to have knowledge, to learn, to study, to go back to the source of revelation. Because I guess what we are lacking nowadays in our life as a Muslim people is just the knowledge, and what we are lagging of allowing this knowledge to guide us, not to twist this knowledge whatever it could fits our desire otherwise around, because uh, that way that we actually warned inside the Quran from not doing it, because that's what previously the other people they did already with their prophets, like how they did, with Musa alayhi salam, Prophet Musa alayhi salam, like how they did, with Isa alayhi salam, with Ibrahim alayhi salam. So the point of these videos is just to give a straight ahead, blunt advices. That these advices, it's not out there to let anyone feel right, not to make anyone feel comfortable. It's not politics. We're not trying to play around, to mess around. It's just more an advice from the heart to the heart, whether you accept it or not. We're not over here to make, actually, how to say, political friends. So it's not from that perspective, it's more from a perspective, seriously, as much as we see people that are living their life in a misery, they're not finding their way out, they're not, being able to communicate with their kids, they're not being able to communicate with their couple, they're not able to communicate with their parents, they're not able to communicate with even the community, the society, with anybody else. How they are able to communicate, and the point of view of Islam, uh, if I want to call it, let me restate this. Us, where we are located from Islam, us, where we are located from our teachings, how we are actually exercising Islam in our life without being off the track. In another word, we don't want to say we're Muslim and we're practically not Muslim, because this is not how it could be working. We're supposed to be Muslim in reality, which is mean. If we want to act something or speak something or say something, we need to make sure that this is actually is fitting according to the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, Muhammad ﷺ, the Prophet of Islam, not based on what is first my tradition taught me. It's not first how my father wants me to deal with him, like I'm submitting to him, not submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Without us not taking in consideration that we're supposed to keep respect, because this is what we are commanded in the Quran, to respect our parents to the maximum ever. But there's no verse in the Quran telling us if your father or your mother doing anything wrong, you keep submitting to their will. This is where we're supposed to differentiate between what is right and what is wrong, and not allowing shaitan to guide us astray by us overthinking about the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the wrong way. Though from that we start to create these kind of series to just help out these people, the new couple specifically, and the youth couple specifically, and whoever wants to change from his life to a better situation. Just this is as a reminders. There's nothing we're speaking out here that no one knows. It's more like a refreshment. And if, for example, someone doesn't know, it's a good way for them to know how to start their life in the best way ever. Because we saw much of problems happening nowadays, and we see really a lot of couples, even sometimes they have one kid or two kids, they ended up to be in a divorce. We saw a lot of people without even them having kids, they're getting divorced after 5 years or 4 years or 6 years, which is a little bit chaotic. And after you get touch base with what is really happened, what led for that, after a small kind of investigation, after you ask here and there in a real way, you understand what is happening, that people they're getting into marriage without themselves understanding what is marriage in Islam. Now what is happening, there's a misconception happening that a lot of our tradition are considered to be, laws and regulation that are above the Islam. So nowadays we're supposed to understand that there is Islam, there's rules, regulation, and there's a tradition. Do not go bring me tradition that is in Morocco to America. Do not go bring me tradition that it's in Lebanon to America. Do not go bring me tradition from Saudi Arabia to America. That doesn't work. We are actually overstepping our limit, and we are actually overstepping our duties and our rights, and not understanding that we have to compromise between what is right and what is wrong, and between what is halal and what is haram, and then between what is the difference between the laws and the regulation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what could be introduced as what's so called, al-urf, which is the tradition of the place where you are living in. But confusing all this together and claiming that our back home tradition, our religion, this is what is creating the chaos, number one. So from that perspective, this is a small summarization of all the videos that we've been doing and the all videos that they're going to come in the future, and this one also, because we saw there's a multiple of misconception. Each one he wants to define what that mean engagement, and suddenly he wants to make the engagement not based on the religion, is more based like how the urf. But يا أخي, you're not living in Saudi Arabia, you're living in America. You're not living in Lebanon, you're living in America. You're not living in Morocco, you're living in America. You're not living in Somalia, you're living in America. How you want to apply a urf of a place that you're not in it geographically? Why you're not actually taking this flexibility of our religion and let it to be done over here, and by just still fitting inside the boundaries of the halal that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us with. And now you want to tie it up in USA with your tradition that it's in back home. This is the chaos that you guys are creating, the adult people, that they are misleading all this community and all the youth by them trying not to get rid of this craziness, and understanding that the religion is more flexible than themselves. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was so flexible and he was really careful about us, to the point that this is where it's fall the wisdom that he asked the Sahaba not to keep on asking him about details, because otherwise around he's gonna ended up giving too much of rules that the whole ummah that is gonna come after the generation of the Sahaba, they're not gonna be able to live their life, which is speaking about us. So with all this flexibility that it was left by the Prophet ﷺ, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're still making ourselves living in a really chaos, in a really hardship. So from this perspective, this video is gonna come. And that's why we spoke, about much of subjects, and what I would like today to reflect about why you force your daughter to get married while she doesn't want to get married. And now it's for you to speak.
So, well, I'm going to reflect on what you're saying. That I feel like a lot of people decide to look at the culture when it comes to marriage, and I don't understand, because they're living. I lived in America with a lot of, and even me at living in America, nobody is doing any type of Arab culture or anybody else's culture, right? But when it comes to marriage, you're like, oh, you have to marry from your culture. We have to do everything culture like, and culture. And I don't understand, it's just only on the marriage. Because this whole time you're not doing anything on culture unless it has to do with marriage. For example, in Islam we have the engagement, right? The engagement process is to talk with the person in private, like in private, like it's you and him. And of course the parents are supposed to be involved, like kind of, because it's going to be haram for them to be by themselves alone, right? To get to know each other. That's the process of what is called the engagement. Now, the marriage is when you do the kitab. So this is where comes culture. It's like, oh, because we were already talking as an engaged couple when we were talking over online for
Mm.
that whole year. And when you were interested in me, which this is part of the Islam, that you went and asked my father, I'm interested in your daughter, can I talk with her? And that is that part of, you already asked him.
I even sent my mom first.
And even when he went to Lebanon, you and your mom went to him and said, we want to start, you want to
No,
talk with
actually, I
me.
was not there. I sent my mom.
You sent your mom? Okay,
Yeah,
because I wasn't there, I was in America. You sent your mom. So that's that's kind of in Islam, even though you can go yourself.
I
So
know.
that's the asking, right? So when I went to Lebanon to do our kitab, out of nowhere, my father decided we need to do it traditionally, culturally. And I'm just like, okay, so what's up? He's like, you're gonna go to my oldest aunt, his oldest sister, which is my Hamtu, and we're gonna get all the uncles and all the aunts from my side, from your side, and we're going to do like official asking. I'm like, didn't we do that a year ago? And we've been talking for a year. Aren't we engaged for this year? Like, okay, whatever. So that I had to go and get a formal dress. So,
Mm-hmm.
because for me, I was like, we're gonna do it the Islamic way. Already are engaged. I'm here to do the kitab. But no, no, no. I don't know. It's just like my father's like, we're gonna do it culturally. Okay. After 3 days later, we go to your parents' house to do the kitab. We even brought the sheikh, who does the the kitab, all the way to your parents' house to do it.
Yeah, was your father a friend?
Yeah, because he was my,
And he was the
in
judge.
Lebanon. Yeah, in Lebanon, he's the judge. This is like in,
He was the court judge at that time, the
yeah.
Islamic court judge.
So anybody who did not get married overseas, because I got married overseas, I did not know this. I was like, I wanted my dad to do my kitab because my dad, he's a sheikh and he does the kitab in America. Like people go to him, he does the marriage, people go to him, he does the divorce, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I did not know that in Lebanon, and I don't know if all the Arab cultures, if all the Arab countries are like this, that the sheikh is the judge and he's the one who does the marriage. Like,
No, actually, it was a special case for your father because you don't have much. Let me clarify this information
yeah, clarify it
for
because I
you.
don't know.
Because no, that was a special case. No, usually the judge, he will not get into anybody's house. There's
I
another
know, and
chef that
yeah,
he will be assigned, by the court to go and do this kind of contract and has a paper official to register it in the court, and then it's ended up to be registered in the what's it called, in the government or in the city.
so he's not a
uh
sheikh.
he's actually beyond the sheikh, so he's a higher,
That's what I'm saying.
so for because he's the friend of your father, he just came.
Because he's a
So
judge.
usually he doesn't come, the judge never come to anybody's house,
Yeah, I understand.
so the sheikh will get assigned.
That's what I don't. Because whenever I got surprised, I'm like, I wanted my dad to come and do my kitab, and you're like, everybody was like, well, it doesn't work like this over here. It's the sheikh and the government is both, it's together. Because over here in America,
Hmm.
if they want to get married religiously, Islamically, they go to the masjid, and if they want it to be in governmental marriage, they go and get married in America's, court of law, court.
Yeah, the actual court, that's
So
true.
I did not know that the both court and Islamic marriage are kind of
Because
a
yeah,
package deal.
because
That's what I didn't know.
because over there it's a part of kind of like, because there's a lot of Muslim, and for that reason they just
Mm-hmm.
fix it some way somehow. We're not
Yeah.
talking about the actual regulation. But what you were speaking about,
Yeah,
you
so
were just
yeah.
defining about the steps.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna go back to right now, because I want to to clarify that. So that's what happened. I'm saying, like, I thought we were already engaged, but whenever we came to Lebanon, my dad was like, "No, we're gonna do this culturally." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "You have to go to the father's house, and it has to be a gathering of people of the family." But of course, my dad doesn't live in Lebanon, so he went to the oldest sister's house, and then when we did the kitab after 3 days, um and then I stayed in Lebanon, and you know in that period of time we were going to wait until April to do our wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people, even I have to explain this to my sister because she was like really wanting to know like the process of a marriage. And the kitab is the marriage. It's like that's it, you're married. Some people wait to live with each other until they do the wedding white dress ceremony, which it's because my sister were asking, do we have to do the white dress ceremony? No, that's actually cultural.
This is what is actually it's come. Some people they use the differences in the opinion by interpreting this based on the different ahadith from the
Mm-hmm.
Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. The recommended,
Mm-hmm.
when it's come to the marriage, once you do the kitab, and
Mm-hmm.
this is how we're gonna define it. Once you do the kitab, which is the nikah nama or the marriage contract,
Mm-hmm.
this is where it's defined right now that you guys are husband and wife,
Yes.
Islamically, by law. There's no one disagree on that.
Yes.
That you are guys based on the Quran and the verses in the Quran that you are husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where the kind of like there's differences over here and differences in the tradition, and I don't want to get dig into these too much of details. What
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna summarize about when after this point, the husband and wife they supposed to go to the action, which is I want to call it the intercourse or the wedding. If they decided it from before they only want to marriage kitab, because at the end this is a contract and there's an agreement has to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and part of it over here, the
Mm-hmm.
guardian or the wali or the father, or if the father if he's not alive, the brother, if the brother he's too
Uncle.
young, the uncle, in general the guardian of the girl, he has to with the girl agree with the groom
Mm-hmm.
on when is going to happen that she's gonna end
The
up to be his
intimate.
wife, and then he's gonna take her to his house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now this wedding, it's a ceremony. Usually at the time of the Sahaba, the ceremony happened on the day of
The kitab.
the Kitab. This
There's
is
some
their
people. There's
tradition.
some people do that though.
But this is my point. Now over here, we have to take a little bit of breath. If anything could be agreed between the future couple, they supposed to agree if, and this is where the agreement has to fall.
Mm-hmm.
They agree if they're gonna do wedding, and after the wedding they're gonna go to their house and do whatever act they want and act like a full man and wife.
Intimate.
Yeah, full man and a husband.
Right.
Okay, excuse me, husband and wife. But when sometimes the adult they get involved too much because maybe the father or the mother they don't like the couple or the new life partner of their kids. That's why they start to make they put the needle in the wheel, and
Yes.
and they start to make it complicated in a wedding. You have to have a wedding, you have to have the white dress, you have to have all this. No, what is actually recommended and is really highly recommended, and it's almost like it's kind of, if we want to call it, uh, like a duty for the husband, it's just to make a small kind of ceremony after the kitab,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Because that was really what it was actually stated according to the sunnah from the Prophet ﷺ, and this is how the Sahaba they acted. So you have to have a ceremony like a gathering to what?
To
to
show.
announce this wedding,
Right.
to announce this, not actually what, to announce this marriage, so
Yes.
people they know about it, that this girl right now, she belongs to this man, and this man belongs to this girl. So from that perspective,
Mm-hmm.
this is where is the importance of, if you want to call it wedding, if you want to call it, events, it just is something
Usually it's wedding
to
ceremony.
announce. Yeah, it just the important for it to announce what, to announce the marriage. Because nowadays in Islam, in order for you to have a Islamic contract, you have to write a dowry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which is, this money has to go to the wife,
Mm-hmm.
to the wife. And this is not buying her, or no, this is to show respect to her. Because right now, as a man, you know that the woman, she's giving you the most precious ever for her, that which is herself. And this is something so important. So from that perspective, if the husband, he has to give his future, his future wife what she deserve in order for him to make the marriage, and then you want him to pay, like, especially over here in America and around the world, the wedding is so expensive. You pay at least 20,000 or 25,000 on just,
50,000.
or 50,000 or 100,000. No, she
Mm-hmm.
deserve it. Why you gonna go spend that much of money on whatever it is?
For a
And
wedding,
then
yeah.
suddenly they want to make, upfront and delayed, and people they forget about the delayed and all this chaos. So let's go back to the main idea, so we don't expand it too much. What we're trying to focus over here, that this misconception, making some tradition like it's a religion, this is the problematic.
Right.
The Prophet ﷺ recommended us to make it easy on man
Mm-hmm.
for marriage, and
Yeah.
make it easy on the girl for marriage.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
That
So,
was my point, because some people they say, no, the marriage can't happen without wedding. No, it's not, the marriage can't happen the wedding, the marriage can happen without announcing it.
right. There's a lot of people that I know where they went and did the kitab. So what did they do at the masjid when, and, this is my, there's some people which I felt like that's what the route I wanted to do, because so I know like a couple of girls, a handful of girls, not every, because a lot of girls they want that big wedding and big hotel and all that, right?
Mm,
So I know a handful of girls, and I said I actually want to go this way. I wanted to get like a white kind of dress, not like a wedding dress, kind of like a similar, not a big huge thing. But anyways, so those handful girls, they went to the
mm,
masjid. They did the kitab. They invited everybody they know to the masjid. So that means there's no music. There's food,
mhm,
to feed the people, and it was this kind of announcement. I think they probably put Nasheed one time. I remember, but it was more like she was in the masjid. The men were on the men's side, and she was on the women's side. They actually went inside my dad's office, did the kitab, and they had a little gathering in the masjid. And then she went and lived with him. Like they went in the car and they went and they opened the house, what they call open the house.
mhm,
So honestly, for me, I grew up with that. People putting the idea for me putting like the wedding, and I remember when I was younger, I'm like, I can't wait until I have the wedding, the hotel, the lights, the flowers, this and that. But as I grew up, and then friends became less, and I'm like, I'm not gonna spend all this money for people that I don't even talk to, and they're gonna come for me for only this day. Like I rather put the money for me and my husband to go travel or do something.
mhm,
But other people are just like, and it's, kudos to you. If you want the whole big, ceremony. And what he said, that the he said to kind of announce. So it doesn't mean like you do a party. It's not. He didn't say like do a full on party. I guess they kind of like, right. Don't do a whole full on party, right?
yeah,
So, but people do a full on party. It's it's you.
it's up to you, but
But
my
my
point.
thing is also a lot of people spend too much of money, I feel like, in weddings. Cause like after the wedding, because there's a lot of things, terms I did not know about that we didn't do. They're like, oh, the haniya, oh, the mubaraka, all this, all that, and I'm like, nah, I don't want none of that.
My point over here, if you still live back in your country and this is part of the tradition of the place in order for you to show everything, and I know back in the time, like, yeah, like for example in Morocco, my brother, he got married to a Moroccan, so he went to Morocco and the whole family got involved in this wedding. It's not one person. Okay, if the whole family in Morocco, they're gonna get involved and spend money with you by doing this wedding because this is how all of them they want to celebrate you. This is not happening over here in USA. So do not put yourself in this circumstance and force upon yourself something that doesn't suit, is not suitable over here.
So they all
This is my
work,
point.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They all work together. They put their hands
Everybody's putting
together.
money.
Like for example, okay.
Ah, okay, I
So
get you.
this is my point. America has its own way of life. Let's make it easier on our youth for their marriage. Let's be realistic with ourselves. Let's be realistic with our kids.
Mhm,
Do not challenge them for them then at that moment they will end it up to do the haram. Do not go challenge them
mhm,
to end it up to do something haram by
yeah,
you not following the tradition of Islam and take it to the wrong direction. This is the whole point of it.
yeah, and you don't need to be making millions of dollars to get married. That's another thing that a lot of people are complaining about. Where the girl's just like, oh, I'm gonna just find only the richest man. I don't, just for example. And there's some people who, let's be honest, with people, some people over here, the education is different. The way of seeing life is different from overseas. Overseas, the parents make sure that their kids are educated. I'm not saying not everybody here, but there's a lot of people that I know that the boys really didn't finish their education. They're focused more on, I want to work. So that means that they're not making as much as these girls or these girls' parents want the guy to make. So whenever sometimes a guy, like I know some, a guy got married, did the kitab with his, with his fiance, now she became his wife, and they left. And he was like, well, it's better. I don't want to spend all this money on a wedding. Like how I was saying, it's too much money for no reason. And he probably doesn't have that, to make a $50,000, wedding. And I remember someone was like, "Oh, he's cheap." It's like, it's like,
this is
no,
this is our mentality. This is
yeah.
we have first and foremost, us as a Muslim, we have to start to be getting back to the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ, start to be respectful
And not
towards
have an
each
ego
other,
and being a show off.
and not to start to, and stop being arrogant and judging each other, cheap whatever is. As actually the cheap person is the one that he keeps on, judging others and not judging himself about his own action, number one. And this is the problematic is we sees a lot, and a lot of the parents they think they have the authority to force upon their kids a marriage
Mm-hmm.
that never was happened even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It was not the tradition of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum wa ardahum.
Mm-hmm.
The actual one of the main pillar of a marriage contract, and that was stated inside the curriculum that your father he did, inside the high school books, is
Mm-hmm.
that both of them they have to agree. So which
Yes,
is mean the man and
girl.
the first the man and the woman
Yeah,
that they're
women.
gonna be the future lifetime partner, okay,
Mm-hmm.
they first agree on each other
Yeah, because it's
to
actually
be to be
haram
man to
to
be
force.
man and a woman. But if we're gonna understand, no, for example, the father he's gonna go and force upon her someone that she spoke with him, she gave a chance to speak with him and she didn't like it, that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the mom she's gonna force upon her son a woman because she agree on her, or and she doesn't agree on the other one just because she disagree. I don't like this race, or I don't like this color, or I don't like her eye color, or her eyesight, or how she walk, or how she
Or how
speaks,
much money?
or how much money. Also, sometimes this
What
happen
type
from
of
both.
job?
So let's face it. Let's go back to the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ he said, إذا جاءكم من ترضون خلقه ودينه فزوجوه. So the Prophet ﷺ, if someone come to ask your daughter's hand and you accept and you agree and you are pleased by his ethics, that he has manners, and you are pleased by his religion status, and
Mm-hmm.
the religion status. You know what I mean, religion status? I'm gonna a little bit expand this idea because this is now nowadays we have a misconception.
Okay.
We say religious.
Means pray and fast.
Religious, there's nothing in Islam called religious. The Prophet ﷺ tardawna dinah, you know, this is something that you are pleased by his religion, which is mean what? That he is considered to be what? Not Muslim. Beyond being Muslim.
Right.
Beyond being Muslim.
Because we got the word religious from the people
Beyond
in
being
America,
Muslim.
honestly.
It's not only Muslim, he's actually practically
A Muslim.
more than Muslim. It's more than being Muslim.
Uh-huh.
You get my point?
Yes.
Which is mean he's actually applying the religion in his life,
Mm.
not acclaiming it
Yes.
by only, oh, I come and pray. I know nowadays it's not easy to judge about that, but when you ask about him, when you speak with him, when you sat him down and communicate with him, because for sure you're not gonna go and let anyone just knocking the door, okay, come, jump in. But this is why you have to before you make anyone to be member in your life, in your family, to add a new member, you have to sit down,
And
communicate
talk.
with them. You're supposed not to reject directly, and you're supposed not to accept directly. You have to have the balance. First bring them in, sit with them, speak with them, know his backgrounds, know his parents, meet them, communicate with them before any other step supposed to be done. But just like, rejecting directly or accepting it directly, in
Right.
both way, is it's a big mistake, never supposed to happen based on our, how to say, situation
Mm-hmm.
over here in USA. Because a lot of people, they say, okay, you're saying this, you're gonna apply this. I'm not gonna advise you something that I don't see this is the best actually solution nowadays in how we live.
And especially, let's say, if your child, if it's a daughter or your son, he likes a girl, and they're near that age of almost engagement, go and talk with the boy or the girl. Like, you get me?
Do you remember one time yesterday? I guess yesterday I was giving an example because I received this question from that sister, and she said, what about if she get forced to get married by her parents? I said, this is not marriage. You can't force, you don't accept. Because if you refuse, forcing does mean this is not a valid marriage, because the
You don't
valid
sign a
marriage
contract.
supposed to come from both sides. If you refuse, that supposed not to happen. Because this is how it's supposed to be marriage. This is the recommendation in the Quran, in the Sunnah.
Yes.
We can't oppose this. How we're Muslim if we oppose both? So I told her the second. I said, what about the father if he said you're not gonna get married before you finish all your studies? I said, this is the horrible mistake. I said, you reminded me about that my wife friend, that her father, he said the same thing for her, and that that weak creature, she ended up to take, antidepressant, because her father, he was so nonsense
Mm-hmm.
that he forced her you're going to finish the whole medical school, then you're gonna be allowed to get married. And I said, this is nonsense. I said, there is some parents that they don't have no rights to do that. This is
Mm-hmm.
actually, they are overstepping their rights, they are overstepping
Right.
their boundaries, and this is not what the Prophet ﷺ taught us how to live our life. But if we suddenly want to oppose the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ, then we want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us in our life. I don't know how this is gonna happen. And we are commanded to follow the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ. Anything
I'm
you
trying
want
to.
to say
Um.
based on that? Because
Yeah.
again, this is
Actually.
what we're gonna speak today
Yeah.
about.
So, a lot of people, with my train of thoughts, um, that yeah, so that some parents are like, well, I'm not gonna accept him. Let's cut off the race, the culture, whatever. Some people like, even with the same like, okay, baba, mama, whatever. I I have the Arab guy, the same, culture, same this. But like, okay, we don't like that. He's not making enough money. I don't like his studies, right? And I want to talk about this little personal thing because it was a lot of people who know us. This thing was kept on being talked about a lot, and especially in my family, that people thought I was not happy because you have what they considered a strange degree, which is not a strange degree, graphic design.
It's more like
And
advertising and visual communication.
yeah,
So don't worry about that.
no, my thing is a lot of people, they think that you're supposed to be only happy if you marry someone rich or starting to have money. And for me, honestly, I was happy, and until now I'm going to say I was happy. And I had a roof over my head. I had someone who loved me. And I was, I did not, for me, my marriage, I never felt that I was taking away something that, I didn't feel that. So my thing is, there's people, as I said, they want to get involved, whether it's the parents, whether it's the aunts, whether it's the old friends, that they just want to say like, hey, you, it's like you're it's like you have to be from coming from money to be married. You get me? But at the same time, it's like you have to get, they're trying to get you guys married. So it's like, you're never going to please anybody. That's what I figured out.
Sure.
You cannot please anybody because you go like, well, I have this one, two, three, but it's like, well, there's this, not this. Number five is missing. You get me? And either way, uh, and there's another example. If I'm going to just take it off of us a little bit, some people would not agree on, you know, marriage if the woman, she was already divorcee or she's divorcee with kids. And sometimes I want to look at the mother or the father of the kids and say, look, your child seems really happy with this person. I know this is not the person that you picked, but it's not, it's not for you. You understand me? Some people just like, this is not what I envisioned for my kid. And then sometimes you have to like kind of let go because it's in Allah's plan. It's not in your plan. Some people just like, I wanted my kids to marry someone who was not a divorcee. I don't want to let my kid marry someone who has, kids. Or I want someone to marry my daughter to marry someone who is rich or is making a lot of money. And sometimes if you just kind of stop and look at your child, see if your child is happy. Isn't that what matters the most? If they're in a very, like, in a good relationship with
I
their.
guess you want to say it. I'm gonna say it in a more blunt way. Just stop being too selfish, and let's look at your child that you care. You claiming that you care about this child. So look at him. What makes him happy, not what satisfy your arrogance or what satisfy what is actually pleasing you. Let's stop thinking about ourselves one moment and look at our child, what they really like. Because right now, this child is an adult, is a mature. It's not anymore a child. He was a child and he was a kid when he needed you and you help that person and you were caring. That's why that child is supposed to show the most respectful attitude and behavior towards you, but he's supposed not to submit to you. He's supposed to submit, he or she
Mm-hmm.
supposed to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to obey you like how he or she supposed to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Mm-hmm.
So if the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, if the Sahaba, whether Sahabiyat or where there was, male or female, the Sahaba, they did everything was lawful, which is from getting married to a divorcee, from getting married to someone who has already kids, or from widow, from whatever the situation. If all these situations were stated in Islam and was stated in the Sunnah, it's just to tell us there is nothing wrong for it to happen as long this is actually coming from both happy couple, because the lifetime relationship has to be built on an agreements happening between the two
Mm-hmm.
couple. For sure, we are parent and we are caring towards our children, and we don't want them, the number one, to be abused, the number
Right.
one to be harassed, the number one to be treated bad by their couple. At that moment, this is something else. But to assume and judge from the beginning and set up boundaries to our kids, to how they want to shape their
Mm-hmm.
future, and especially they're not trying, we're not speaking about you getting involved with your kids, that, for example, about him trying to be alcoholic, or
Oh.
about him or her trying to be drug headed. We're not talking about this. We're talking about something totally different. And you guys, you are putting it in the same case, like getting on drug, or being alcoholic, or committing adultery. This is the differences that we have to be careful about. They are not the same.
Mm-mm. That's what I'm saying. Like, with that mother, I was like, look, you already tried to hook him up with other girls, and you saw he was already miserable. He was in depression and stuff. I said, but look at him now. She was really upset. I said, look at him now. Don't you see he's happy? Yes, she's a divorcee with kids, but don't you see he's happy? Like, that's what counts. It's like it's everybody. Like, there's a reason why that the prophet or and the sahabis, they were examples that is saying it's not haram. It is possible. This is, don't treat another human or and the other culture, because also prophet, he said, you marry from other cultures. You can marry divorcees, you can marry widows.
They're still human beings. They still
Yeah,
have feelings. Maybe it was not their fate with the other people. Right now their fate is supposed to be with these people.
they met them for a reason.
And this is not only this. Do not be over judging. Do not let your bad side inside you tell, oh, this is a fake happiness, afterward he's gonna wake up, after whatever. You're not better than your child. Let's state it like that. You already had your path. They're gonna have their own path. No one copy other people's path. No
Mm-hmm.
one. Zero. None. Zero. Even the scholars. Okay. Like Shafi'i, he was not like how it was his, his sheikh. Imam Ahmad, he was not like how his mashayikh they were. Each one of them, they have a different attitude, different path, different ways. For sure, each one elaborate his new experience based on other people's experience because he learned from them, but doesn't mean it's gonna be copy conform, which is it's gonna be totally different because each one of us is different in personality. Number one. Number two, all the time remember that your child was your child not because you chose this, not
Mm-hmm.
because he chose that you are his parents. That was a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose you to be the reason for him to get transferred from not being created to being created. So let's be a little bit merciful and realistic with ourselves that we were the reason. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be the reason for them to come to life. And these, we didn't even decide if they're going to be male or a female. We didn't decide if they're going to have green eye or blue eye or
Or
white hair
disabled
or
or
gray
healthy.
or brown hair or disabled or undisabled. They could walk, they could mentally ill, not mentally. This is nothing
Artistic,
of our
smart.
own decision. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose everything, why we are going against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fate? We all know the love, if it's happening, is happening from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as long as built, and the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time built on
Halal.
righteousness, on righteousness. We're talking about the relationship that is built on righteousness. We're not talking about a relationship that is not built on righteousness. Also, I don't want anyone to misconcept what we're talking about. We are actually speaking, all our talk is based on righteousness, on actually things happening in a righteous way, which is mean following the right direction of the halal and not twisting. So don't put words in our mouth.
Mm-hmm.
What we're trying to say, all what we spoke is actually state statement that is funny whenever everything is happening in a righteous way. So we're not defending someone that he's, for example, he's been hanging out with his, classmates, and I don't know whatever happened between both of them, and reach a point, that these guys that almost, touch each other, and then right now he's gonna bring her back, and you already know that, and you're fighting this. We're not talking about this kind of situation because this situation is different. We need to solve it in a different way. We're talking about the ideal, regular way. Whenever someone come knock on your door, or someone he saw your daughter, or your daughter just saw someone, and that guy he just give she give him an, I would like you to come and ask my hand because I like you, we need to communicate, this type kind of righteous conversation that we're talking about. From this kind of statement, we're not talking about someone that he built up everything on a righteous way.
Right.
So we don't want anyone to misconcept this. This is for so far. I feel like for today it's I guess I reached my limit. What do you think? You not to add anything before?
No, it's good.
Anything else?
It's like we're good.
Okay, so I guess we reach our limit for the day. I wish that was actually to the
Helpful.
core and helpful. If you have any question, you could throw this in the comment. If you like the video, you could share it. You could share it with others. If you didn't like it, you just disregard it and consider yourself you didn't hear anything.
Or tell us what you guys want to let us.
What you want to speak about?
Yeah,
We could,
we're very
you could
open-minded people,
suggest, no
obviously.
problem.
I mean,
No problem.
if you listen to our videos, we're very open. We're very wanting to,
We're just trying to make it as a simple talk. We're not trying to make it as complicated. If you guys want to have more evidence about what we speak, about more references based on what we're sharing, this kind of opinion, throw it in the comment and we try to share with you as much as reference as we could, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.